The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
That was the moment that U.S. Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy lost his job.
Some Republicans barely contained their anger.
The chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the chair.
An historic moment. For the first time in the history of the United States, the Speaker of the House has been removed.
Historic, yes. A first ever. The Speaker of the House is always a member of the party that has the majority of the seats. Right now, that's the Republicans. So for the Speaker to be ousted, well, that means that members of his own party had to vote him out. And not only did that happen in this case, but here's the wild thing. The motion to expel him as Speaker actually came from his own party.
We've traced the call. It's coming from inside the House.
What we witnessed this week was the latest in a long series of showdowns between these two men.
Kevin McCarthy is a feature of the swamp. He has risen to power by collecting special interest money and redistributing that money in exchange for favors. We are breaking the fever now, and we should elect a speaker who's better.
Look, I think Matt has planned this all along. It didn't matter what we transpired. You know, he would have done it if we were in shutdown or not.
This so-called family feud has been in the public eye for a minute. Think back to the election of the Speaker in January 2023.
Today was supposed to be all about the Republicans celebrating taking control of the House. But it quickly turned into a battle as hard-right GOP members blocked Kevin McCarthy's bid for House Speaker during 3 separate votes.
Gaetz never wanted McCarthy to pick up the Speaker's gavel. In fact, he put forward a different name altogether.
And so I rise to nominate Donald Trump for the position of Speaker of the House.
After 14 rounds of voting, Gaetz continued to refuse to cast a ballot for McCarthy.
McCarthy's speakership was embattled really before it ever began. There were 15 ballots to elect him as Speaker back in January. It was much the same situation where initially there were 20 House Republicans who voted against him, and that left him well shy of a majority. There were various concessions made to these more hard-right members, and eventually the party came together to give him a very bare majority of the votes that he needed.
Even in the 15th round, all Gaetz agreed to do was simply show up and vote present to allow McCarthy to take the top spot. Matt Gaetz is no stranger to the spotlight, not without his own congressional troubles. He's facing a multi-year congressional ethics inquiry into allegations about misusing funds and sexual misconduct.
The major political headline, new trouble for Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz tonight, already under federal investigation. Now the House Ethics Committee is also investigating its own set of allegations.
McCarthy has said that Gaetz' move to get rid of him as Speaker is in retaliation for not intervening in that inquiry.
He wants me to try to wipe that away. I'm not going to do that. That's illegal.
House speakers appoint ethics committee members, but they don't take part in meetings. Gaetz told MSNBC.
The Speaker says this is really about an ethics complaint. Your response?
My response is really going to surprise you. This is about term limits, a balanced budget amendment, and single subject spending bills. And right there, you saw Kevin McCarthy lying like a dead dog.
The House ethics inquiry is ongoing.
Working with the Democrats is a yellow brick road that has been paved by Speaker McCarthy.
Take a look at this tweet from Gaetz. Quote, Speaker McCarthy believes in nothing except money and power. In football, when a team isn't winning games it's supposed to, they fire the coach. I've had enough McFailure. Have you? To understand why Gaetz has such an issue with McCarthy, you have to understand the role the Speaker plays. The Speaker is responsible for ensuring that the House passes legislation that's supported by the majority party, a role that Gaetz says McCarthy has failed at.
When you have a small Republican majority, it becomes very difficult to actually pass something. Gaetz is kind of a case in point when it comes to this element of the Republican Party that is making it so difficult to govern.
In this latest round of funding bills, Gaetz, along with a handful of Republicans, were pushing for a big funding cut. Cuts that they said aligned with McCarthy's promise to scale back government spending. But those proposed cuts were left out of the final legislation.
There was nothing that was going to be good enough for these people. The border security that was included in here wasn't sufficient. The Ukraine funding was too much. There was always going to be this kind of one thing that was going to stick out to them as being a deal breaker.
2 days after McCarthy, along with Democrat support, passed a stopgap funding bill in the House to avoid a government shutdown, Gaetz made his move. But not without some irony.
Matt Gaetz and his supporters have complained that Kevin McCarthy has worked too much with Democrats, but in order to get rid of McCarthy, they had to rely on an overwhelming majority of Democratic votes. 8 Republicans, every Democrat who was voting, voted to oust Kevin McCarthy.
This is the moment of reckoning for the Republican Party.
With McCarthy out, Republicans have a tough road ahead of them. 208 of them voted to keep McCarthy as the Speaker, and that's not insignificant.
You all know Matt Gaetz. You know it was personal. Everything he accused somebody of, he was doing.
If you look at the way McCarthy spoke about Gaetz after the motion to vacate on Tuesday night, he basically said that Gaetz doesn't say anything that's true. He said that Gaetz betrayed him when they were voting for Speaker back in January. So there is a lot of bad blood between those two.
But Gaetz didn't accomplish this takedown on his own. In total, 8 Republicans voted to have McCarthy removed. And critics say that there's no clear path or plan on what happens next. All this with a looming threat of yet another government shutdown next month. McCarthy won't run for Speaker again. He's made that clear, leaving the obvious question: who will?